You know, that moment when you're reviewing your credit card statement at the end of the month, scrolling through the charges, and you keep seeing these purchases that made perfect sense when you made them, but now just look like money you'll never see again. Maybe you're sitting there wondering how you spent so much when you weren't doing anything extravagant, weren't living recklessly, were just making normal, responsible adult purchases. Perhaps you've noticed that your income has increased over the years, but somehow your financial position hasn't improved proportionally. You're earning more than you did 5 years ago, maybe significantly more, but you don't feel wealthier. You don't have more saved. You're not building wealth faster. The money just disappears into things that seemed reasonable at the time. Here's what most personal finance advice won't acknowledge. The world has changed dramatically in the past decade, but our spending habits haven't adapted. Things that represented good value 10 years ago have quietly transformed into terrible deals. Purchases that used to make economic sense now represent pure wealth destruction. Yet, we keep buying them because that's what we've always done, what everyone else does, what seems normal. My name is Anderson, and I help people understand why their money disappears despite earning decent incomes and making what seem like reasonable decisions. If you're tired of watching your earnings evaporate into purchases that don't improve your life or build your wealth, stay with me through this. Subscribe if this kind of practical financial analysis helps you see your spending patterns more clearly. Now, when you think about wasted money, what comes to mind? Do you picture obviously foolish purchases, impulse buys you regret immediately, luxury items you couldn't afford? Or do you assume that as long as you're not being reckless, you're probably spending wisely? Here's the thing that's going to surprise you. Most wealth destruction doesn't come from obviously bad decisions. It comes from purchases that seem completely reasonable, that everyone around you is making, that society has normalized to the point where questioning them feels strange. These are the expenses that quietly drain thousands from your accounts annually, while you remain convinced you're being responsible. Before we examine specific items, let me give you a framework for thinking about money. Every dollar you spend falls into one of three categories. There are dollars that generate more dollars, like investments or skills development that increases your earning capacity. There are dollars that provide genuine value or necessity, like nutrition, shelter, and healthcare. And then there are dollars that simply vanish, providing neither financial return nor meaningful lasting value. The third category is where most people lose their financial future without recognizing what's happening. The items we're going to discuss have shifted from Category 2 to Category 3, often without people noticing. They used to provide value. They used to represent reasonable purchases, but economic conditions, technological changes, and evolving business models have transformed them into wealth destroyers disguised as normal expenses. Let's start with something that affects almost everyone but flies completely under awareness: premium streaming service subscriptions you barely use. When streaming services first emerged, they represented incredible value. $10 monthly for unlimited entertainment seemed like a revolution compared to cable television packages costing 10 times that amount. But here's what actually happened. You signed up for one service to watch a specific show, then another service had exclusive content you wanted, then another, then another. Suddenly, you're paying for 5 or 6 different streaming platforms, spending $60 to $80 monthly, and you're primarily using one or two of them. The others sit there, charging your card automatically, while you occasionally remember they exist when browsing for something to watch. Here's the mathematics that matters. $60 monthly in unused streaming services equals $720 annually. That's $720 that could be building an emergency fund, paying down debt, or being invested. Over 10 years at reasonable returns, that's approximately $10,000 in wealth you traded for the occasional ability to watch content you mostly didn't watch. The psychological trap is that each individual service feels inexpensive. $10 or $15 monthly doesn't trigger the same mental alarm as a $200 purchase. But $10 here, $15 there, another $12 over there compounds into substantial money. And because the charges are automatic, buried in your monthly statements, you stop noticing them entirely. They become invisible wealth extraction. Moving to something that sounds incredibly practical and responsible, but often represents pure waste: extended warranties on electronics. You're standing at checkout, about to purchase a $600 laptop, and the salesperson becomes deeply concerned about your future. They want to protect you from the devastating financial impact of potential repairs. For just $99, you can have complete peace of mind. Here's what they're not telling you. Extended warranties are pure profit centers with claim rates that would shock you if you knew the actual numbers. These warranties typically cost 15 to 25% of the item's purchase price, but actual claim rates run below 15%. That means for every $100 consumers spend on extended warranties, only about $12 goes toward actual repairs. The rest is profit. But it gets worse. Most extended warranties don't activate until after the manufacturer's warranty expires. They're loaded with exclusions, making them nearly worthless when you actually need them. Accidental damage isn't covered. Normal wear isn't covered. If you relocated the device, that might void coverage. If you didn't register it within 30 days using a Byzantine process, it's void. The real mathematics here is that if you're purchasing extended warranties on multiple items annually, you're easily wasting $400 to $800 yearly on protection you'll probably never use and probably wouldn't work if you tried. That money could fund an actual emergency fund, providing real protection from unexpected expenses, rather than funding insurance policies existing primarily to generate retailer profits. Let's discuss something that affects your daily life in ways you probably don't calculate: premium fuel for vehicles that don't require it. You pull into the gas station and there are 3 buttons: regular, mid-grade, and premium. You've convinced yourself that premium fuel is better for your vehicle, that it provides better performance, that it's worth the extra cost for the long-term health of your engine. Unless your vehicle specifically requires premium fuel, which is clearly stated in your owner's manual, you're wasting money. The difference between regular and premium fuel is typically 30 to 50 cents per gallon. If you're filling a 15-gallon tank weekly, that's approximately $7 per fill-up, $360 annually, throwing money at a marginal benefit your vehicle doesn't need and you won't notice. Here's what car manufacturers won't prominently advertise. Modern engines designed for regular fuel don't benefit from premium. The higher octane rating prevents knocking in high compression engines, but if your engine doesn't have high compression, you're just paying more for the same result. It's like buying premium electricity for your house. The lights work the same way regardless of what you paid. That $360 annually, invested over 20 years at reasonable returns, becomes approximately $14,000. You're trading substantial long-term wealth for a feeling that you're being good to your vehicle, when in reality you're just being good to the gas company's profit margins. Now let's talk about something that hits people in their desire to be prepared: bulk buying perishable foods you won't actually consume before they spoil. The wholesale club membership seemed brilliant. You'd save money buying larger quantities at lower per unit prices. You'd be efficient, prepared, thinking ahead like responsible adults do. Then reality arrives, and your refrigerator becomes a science experiment. The average household throws away approximately 20% of the food they purchase. 20%, that's like taking every 5th grocery dollar and directly depositing it in the trash. For a family spending $400 monthly on groceries, that's $80 of waste, nearly $1,000 annually of food going straight to garbage. Bulk buying amplifies this problem exponentially. You purchase the giant container of berries because the per pound price is attractive, but berries deteriorate rapidly. You stock up on fresh vegetables with excellent intentions, but life happens, you order takeout several times, and suddenly you're composting $50 worth of produce that you paid for but never consumed. The psychology is predictable. When you buy large quantities, you feel less guilt about individual waste because each item seems inexpensive. Throwing away one piece of fruit from a 3-pound container doesn't feel as bad as throwing away a single piece that costs $2. But the mathematics doesn't care about your rationalizations. Wasted food is wasted money, regardless of how you mentally frame it. Let's shift to something that seems like smart consumer behavior but often isn't: buying things on sale that you don't actually need. The clearance section is like a gravitational field for financial common sense. You see something marked down 50%, and suddenly your brain starts performing gymnastics to justify why you absolutely need this item you'd never heard of 5 minutes ago. Retail psychology has weaponized the concept of savings. You walk into a store seeking one specific item, but there's a sale on something completely different. The original price was $70, but today only it's $35. You're saving $35, except you're not saving $35. You're spending $35 on something you didn't want or need until a price tag convinced you it was a bargain. The average person spends hundreds annually on sale items they never use: clothing that hangs in closets with tags still attached, kitchen equipment that occupies drawer space but never encounters actual food, books that sounded interesting at clearance prices but never get opened, electronics that seemed like good deals until you remembered you already owned something serving the same function. Here's what makes this particularly destructive. Every time you purchase something on sale that you don't use, you're not just wasting the money you spent. You're also sacrificing the opportunity to invest that money or spend it on something you genuinely value. That $35 clearance purchase could have been $35 toward eliminating debt, building reserves, or investing for future freedom. Now let's discuss something that destroys wealth while making you feel responsible: paying for gym memberships you rarely use. You signed up with excellent intentions. You'd finally get in shape, establish healthy habits, transform your life. The monthly fee seemed reasonable, especially with the discount for annual commitment. Then life happened. The first month, you went regularly. The second month, a few times. By month 3, you'd been once. Now it's month 8, and you haven't visited in months. But that charge keeps appearing on your credit card because canceling requires jumping through administrative hoops designed to make you give up and just keep paying. Here's the brutal mathematics. The average gym membership costs approximately $50 monthly. If you're going twice per month, that's $25 per visit. You could pay for individual day passes at most facilities for less than that. If you're going once monthly or not at all, you're paying $50 for nothing. That's $600 annually funding equipment you don't use and goals you're not pursuing. But the real cost isn't just the monthly fee, it's the opportunity cost of that money compounded over years. $600 annually invested over 20 years becomes approximately $28,000. You're trading substantial long-term wealth for the psychological comfort of having a gym membership that makes you feel like you're the kind of person who goes to gyms even though you're not actually going. Let's talk about something that affects people trying to be smart with credit: paying credit card annual fees for rewards you're not actually earning. Premium credit cards marketed themselves brilliantly. Pay a $200 or $400 annual fee, and you'll earn rewards so generous that the card essentially pays for itself. Travel credits, lounge access, bonus categories that make every purchase feel like you're gaming the system. Then you actually calculate your annual spending and rewards earned. Unless you're spending $30,000 or more annually and using the card strategically for bonus categories, you're not earning enough rewards to justify the annual fee. You're paying $400 for rewards worth $200. The credit card company positioned this as you coming out ahead, when in reality, they're coming out ahead by $400 annually. The psychology is powerful because you feel sophisticated, you have a premium card, you're earning rewards, you're being strategic about your spending. Meanwhile, you're paying annual fees that exceed the value you're receiving, funding the credit card company's profit margins, while convincing yourself you're the one benefiting from the arrangement. Moving to something that hits almost everyone, buying coffee and meals out habitually instead of occasionally. That morning coffee run costs $6. The afternoon lunch you grab because you didn't prepare anything costs $12. The evening stop for whatever caught your attention adds another $8. These don't feel like significant expenses in the moment because they're individually small. But here's where the mathematics becomes genuinely depressing. An $8 daily habit costs you $2,920 annually. Most people have multiple daily habits: the morning beverage, the afternoon snack, the evening convenience purchase. We're discussing enough money to fund vacations, make significant debt payments, or build substantial emergency reserves. It's not just about the immediate cost, it's about the opportunity cost of that money over time. $8 daily invested at reasonable returns becomes enormous wealth over decades. Instead, it's purchasing temporary satisfaction that's forgotten within hours. You're trading long-term financial security for short-term convenience and momentary pleasure. The psychological trap is that each individual purchase feels insignificant. $6 for coffee doesn't seem substantial when you're earning decent money. But $6 multiplied by working days multiplied by years becomes a substantial sum that could have changed your financial trajectory if deployed differently. Let's discuss something that seems practical but often isn't: buying prepackaged convenience foods instead of basic ingredients. Those meal kits being delivered to your door seem efficient. Pre-cut vegetables, pre-measured ingredients, recipes requiring minimal thought. You're paying for convenience and saving time, which has value, right? Here's the actual mathematics. Those meal kits typically cost $12 to $15 per serving. You could purchase the raw ingredients for the same meals for $4 to $6 per serving. You're paying double or triple for someone else to measure and package ingredients you're still cooking yourself. Over a year, if you're doing this 3 times weekly, you're spending approximately $2,000 more than necessary for meals you're still preparing. The same logic applies to pre-cut fruits and vegetables, single-serving packages, and convenience preparations of basic foods. You're paying substantial premiums for minor conveniences that you could easily handle yourself with minimal time investment. That $2,000 annually represents money that could be building actual wealth instead of funding, packaging, and marketing. Now, let's address something that destroys wealth while making people feel cultured: buying physical books you'll never read or could borrow free from libraries. You walk through a bookstore or browse online, see something interesting, convince yourself you'll definitely read it, purchase it, then it sits on a shelf, unread, gathering dust alongside the other 20 unread books you've purchased with identical intentions. Books aren't expensive individually. $15 to $30 per book seems reasonable, especially when you're buying knowledge or entertainment. But if you're purchasing 2 books monthly that you don't read, that's $400 to $700 annually, building a personal library of guilt rather than knowledge. Public libraries provide free access to virtually any book you want to read. E-readers and library apps let you borrow digital books instantly without leaving your home. Yet people continue purchasing physical books they won't read because ownership feels different from borrowing. That feeling costs hundreds annually for no actual benefit beyond the illusion of being well read. Finally, let's discuss something that really matters: overpaying for brand names when identical products exist at lower prices. This applies to everything from groceries to clothing to household products. You're paying 30 to 50% more for packaging and marketing rather than meaningfully different products. Generic medications contain identical active ingredients to brand names produced in the same facilities, but cost a fraction of the price. Store brand foods often come from the same manufacturers as name brands with different packaging. You're paying premium prices for labels and advertising rather than superior products. The average household could save 15 to 20% on groceries alone by choosing store brands over name brands for items where quality is identical. On a monthly grocery budget of $500, That's $100 monthly, $1,200 annually, traded for no actual benefit beyond familiar packaging. So there you have it. 10 more things representing thousands in potential savings annually for most people. The beautiful thing about avoiding these financial traps is that the money doesn't vanish. It can be redirected toward things that actually build wealth and improve your life. Stop funding industries built on your spending habits and start building the financial future you actually want instead. Your future self won't remember the premium fuel or the streaming services you barely used, but your future self will absolutely appreciate the wealth you built by recognizing these traps and avoiding them while everyone else kept spending.